So I've just finished reading the book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant. Naval is an entrepreneur and investor. He's a very successful guy. And this book is basically someone else stitching all of his tweets, podcast appearances, and all the knowledge that he's given to people into one coherent book. So the book summarizes Naval's thoughts on how to achieve wealth and happiness. And for me, this was a very quick 200 pages to get through. It took me maybe 2 weeks. I'll start with what I didn't really like or I didn't agree with. So the first is the writing style. It's very LinkedIn-y, very polished. Of course, it's tweets stitched together, so it's expected to be very pithy. And the writer himself acknowledges that. But I felt that since you have the reader's attention for 200 pages anyway, you might as well expand on each concept instead of simply touching and going on them. And some parts may even seem like they're in tension with each other. Like, for example, he says that he himself doesn't know what to do in life. He only knows what to avoid doing. But then he goes on to say that he values his judgment the most and one of the most valuable skills you can develop. But how can you say that if you're not sure on what to do, you're only sure on what not to do? I guess maybe he looks at judgment in a different way. In general, Naval seems like a very big proponent of reading up on maths and sciences, but sometimes it seems like he'll do a lot of napkin math, quick math to make something seem simpler than it really is, just to put it on a little graphic, a nice little diagram, instead of technically developing it further. Also, if you've read a lot of personal finance books, like I guess the most popular one is The Psychology of Money, then a lot of the concepts he talks about will seem like regurgitated stuff from largely accepted consensus, like index funds are good or compound interest or anything like that. Or an actual thing I want to think about when it comes to talking about happiness and that whole concept. He says that it's not really about being happy in the short term, as in the short-term bursts of pleasure that you might feel. He says that he really wants to feel peace. But then he gives us the example of him buying a new car and him looking forward to it, and he kind of condemns himself for looking forward to it, because he knows that once the car arrives, he'll no longer be excited for it and he won't even think about it. So he tries not to get too caught up in the anticipation of the good thing. But isn't that what humans do? Is it really that wrong to be excited for something? Even though you have the knowledge that once it arrives, you'll be over that feeling, you should still allow yourself to bask in that excitement. Because for a lot of people, that little excitement may not come by that often, so you should really appreciate it. You can feel free to let me know what you think. Maybe as I get older, I'll start to value peace more than short-term happiness. One last critique, he mentions that if you can't decide, the answer is no. So if there's something that you're sitting on the fence about and you're really hesitating to decide what to do, then the answer is no, because he says that there's more options than we realize. And if something was truly the right call, then it wouldn't feel like a hard decision. But if we truly thought that way, wouldn't we get nothing done? Like, we wouldn't have the drive to do stuff that we are hesitating about or we feel that it's too risky, then people will simply not do those things, right? Okay, other than those critiques, there's a lot of actually useful stuff here. One thing he tells people to keep in mind is that most people are intimidated by math, right? So whenever they see something online or content online that claims to be science-backed or tested by scientists, then they're usually very likely to just plainly believe what's on the screen or believe whatever the person says. And he essentially calls it pseudoscience, that people just hear a statistic and they just assume it's the real thing. So he emphasizes that it's worth being more skeptical on random statistics that you hear. His points on wealth building are genuinely very insightful, like striving towards wealth and not just money, and not just trading your time for money, instead striving towards things that will generate returns while you sleep. And also the most important point that the largest creators of wealth is through owning a slice of a company or a business rather than trading your time for money at a salaried job, for example. And this can even be through stock ownership, not simply owning an actual business. And of course, compound interest plays a big part in that in the long term. Another important thing is that he says that people should schedule time to be bored. For example, the time when you're brushing your teeth, it really pays to be in the moment and not think about anything else. He's found that people at any given point of time, they're usually regretting the past or they're planning the future instead of being truly present in the moment, which is why time seems to pass by much faster when you're not present in the moment. I also feel that the time that you get to truly sit with your thoughts is when your mind actually gets a break, which is rare in modern society. Your mind gets the time to digest what's been happening and stabilize yourself. On to happiness. Naval describes this as the absence of desire, and I kind of agree with it. He mentions that people should only have one big overarching desire at any given point of time. Because once you desire something, you will self-impose suffering on yourself until you achieve what you desire, right? So what's the point of desiring so many things? Let's say I claim that I want ABC. That's me saying that until I achieve and get ABC, I will be unhappy. Is that really what you want? So obviously people like monks can afford to have zero desires, but for the modern day person, one desire is more than enough and two is even pushing it. So strive to find that one thing that gives you purpose, work on continuously improving it and achieving that goal, because it's a trade-off that you're making with yourself to be unhappy until you obtain that desire. But more than one might be a bit too much. Also, if your friends ask you if you're happy, in general, try just saying yes, even though you might not be. Because of the consistency bias, we subconsciously want to behave in ways that are consistent with what we say out loud. Even saying that you're happy in a low-key way pushes you towards being happy. I guess that's kind of like manifestation. Talking about habits, Naval himself says that meditation, while it has its perks, doesn't really pay off the way you think it would. Like if you meditate for 1 hour every single day, if someone comes up to your face and disrespects you, you'd probably still feel very angry at that moment. So did the meditation really help you be a peaceful, caring guy in that situation? Instead, he talks about reading being the most important habit. Expected answer, he was a very avid reader since young, but the unique point he makes is that you should really read anything and everything. He himself started reading whatever he could find, like comic books and stuff. You should read what truly interests you instead of reading what you think will benefit you. Focus on whatever you gravitate towards anyway and read more on that. So whatever you're curious about. It doesn't have to be non-fiction or scientific or finance books, because then that habit will naturally build you into someone who's a more curious person, and you might even end up onto those more important topics anyways. Another concept he talks about is the 5 chimps theory. Is the idea that if you look at any chimpanzee in a group, you can usually predict its behavior by looking at the 4 other chimpanzees that it hangs out with the most. And we can try to extrapolate this onto humans, that with the average of our 5 closest friends or 4 closest friends, the point being that who you spend the most time with is one of the most important decisions you can make, because it affects your mood, ambitions, and your behavior basically, whether you agree with that or not. So don't hesitate to cut people off if they're not meeting your standards of ambitions or they're preventing you from achieving your own goals and ambitions. Naval doesn't claim to be a religious person. He says that he's spiritual. One idea that I got from him was the idea of impermanence, that you're constantly dying and being reborn every moment. It sounds dramatic, but the underlying point is that the version of you from years ago is already gone. It's actually quite a freeing thought, because you get the chance to be someone else, be someone new every single second, because your own body's cells, your thoughts are all being updated every second. So you always have the chance to change. So overall, this was quite a fast read for me. I've enjoyed reading it. There's actual ideas in here that are worth thinking about, and especially the points on wealth building if you haven't already read books on personal finance. Some of it has helped me, and I will apply it on being more present in the moment by not planning ahead or regretting the past. And I might follow what he says by not only reading self-improvement books, but also venturing out into other genres as well. Okay, bye.